Hello everyone, welcome to episode 11 of my gameplay series of Worldwide Rush. Same introduction as always. The developers of Worldwide Rush gave me a copy of the game, so I'm able to make these videos thanks to them. And I play Worldwide Rush on the Steam Deck. There are minor graphics differences and gameplay differences compared to playing on a PC. Last time I mentioned that there had been an update to hub managers in the game. I've done some testing since then, and I'm running into the same problems that I previously had. On the other hand, there has been a minor update to the hub managers since I tested them, so I'll check again to see if they're any more useful now than they were before. I said last time that I checked all the routes and cities I have connections to in order to figure out which routes I need to be upgrading. I thought I should go through the details of how I've been doing that. I grouped the cities by the nearest hub, and then for each city I checked the list of passengers at that city. For each destination with at least 10 passengers waiting, I check which routes will take those passengers, checking each vehicle on those routes individually. Then I decide what I should be doing, whether to upgrade an existing route or create a new route, and in many cases I do nothing if I think the problem will resolve itself. If I wasn't recording these videos and just playing for myself, I would make all of the changes as I go. For these videos, I've been planning everything first, so now I have a big list of changes I want to make. Before the last video, I considered 800 passenger destinations. After that video, about half of those have been resolved, but unfortunately I had an equal number of new destinations to consider. Still, I think my network has improved, and I'll make more improvements this time out. I've started making one of those improvements as I've been speaking. I've had this route from Memphis through Salina to Colorado Springs, and I've decided that I want to change how it works. I've created a hub in Denver, and I'm now changing the bus route. So instead of starting in Memphis and going to Colorado Springs, it is just going to go from Salina to Denver. And then having done that, I'm going to add a new route connecting Denver directly to Colorado Springs. The reason I'm doing this is right now I have a bunch of passengers who want to go to Colorado Springs, but looking at the cities, Denver really makes a better hub for me. And so I want to send the passengers to the nearest hub, which I want to be in Denver. And so now that I have that hub in Denver, I'm going to be able to expand from there, although I'm going to come back to that later. There are a few more things I wanted to take care of right now, various places where there are huge numbers of passengers who are piling up, and I need to deal with them before anything else happens. So here from Myrtle Beach, I have passengers for many destinations. Myrtle Beach isn't actually the problem, but passengers getting to these various other cities, Wilmington, Jacksonville, New Bern, and to Roanoke Rapids, I am running into problems. So I'm going to add another bus to that route. And then another issue that I have is from Culpeper. And again, the issue isn't actually Culpeper itself, it's some of the steps along the way. Hampton and Virginia Beach. And I want to upgrade the existing bus that I have on this route to a larger bus. And then now that I've upgraded that one, I'm also going to duplicate it immediately. And so next on my list, these are all sort of in the same area at the moment, is Jacksonville has a huge number of passengers who want to go to both Wilmington and Myrtle Beach. And the existing routes and even some of the upgrades I've just done aren't really enough to support that. So I'm going to create a new route just for those three cities. I'm doing some guesswork on the sizes of the buses that I need to be using. I do sort of calculate out how fast the bus can make the round trip. I mean, it'll tell you how long the route is. And use that to figure out how many round trips the bus is going to be taking, how many passengers I think I need to be taking per month. And that allows me to decide which bus that I need. Meanwhile, I just expanded into this area in Canada last month, and already passengers are getting backed up out of Montreal, headed up towards Drummondville and Quebec. So I wanted to add some more trains, and also in the other direction, heading down towards New York. And my whole goal in being in that area is to take passengers away from the other companies, which means I need to stay on top of the passenger demand there. I've had significant issues in Mexico as well. This route, which is connecting Monterrey to León, is its final destination, but especially Querétaro City and Irapuato are both problems for me. There are many, many passengers who are just sort of accumulating in those two cities, and so I need to expand this route to carry those passengers between those cities. But I've spent all of my money. So I've been doing all these changes while the game is paused, but I need to be bringing in some money so I can make these changes. So I will unpause the game, and there we go. I've added 2 additional buses to that route. These are the buses that I tried to add last time around, and they just didn't get added because I think because the hub was full and it didn't automatically expand them. So those were the issues that I had to take care of like right away. And so now I can move to this month's tasks. And the first task is to build a hub in St. Cloud. So I've done that. And of course, there's an immediate bonus associated with that if I connect to all of the cities that St. Cloud has a destination. There already was a connection to Minneapolis, but it's not really doing enough, so I'm going to add a direct bus between St. Cloud and Minneapolis to take care of that. I also had a connection to Rochester, and again, passengers can get there, just not fast enough, so I'm going to add another direct bus route. And deciding which bus I need based on how many passengers and how long I think the route will take. And there's one more that I really need. It's to Aberdeen. So we'll build that out as well. And as long as I have that connection to Aberdeen, it turns out that Aberdeen also has passengers to Sioux Falls. So I'm going to add a connection there as well. And since Sioux Falls is close to Omaha anyway, I will extend this bus route all the way down to Omaha. So I'm now connecting the 2 hubs directly, or giving another way to get between the 2 hubs. There's one more connection that I want to make in this area. I've connected all the cities sort of surrounding Mankato. So I'm going to add a connection to there as well. Mankato has passengers for St. Cloud and for Fort Dodge. So I will add a bus line that connects all 3 cities. Alright, so that was the first task done. Next up is this potential to upgrade. And so it lists 5 individual vehicles and recommends upgrading them. I took a look at them. Several of them, I don't actually think it's worth it for me to upgrade the vehicles, but this route, I do think it's worth it to upgrade. So, in fact, I'm going to upgrade nearly all the vehicles. It was just recommending 1, but there are so many passengers who are trying to use this route that I'm going to upgrade all of the Gannets that I had to 4-acres. I have the one one other larger bus that I'm not going to bother to upgrade. And then all the rest of these, I looked at them. Upgrading these buses doesn't seem to be the right way to deal with these routes. I'd rather be making other changes. And so my final task is all cities should prosper in Cuba. I've had this task a couple of times at this point. So when I was looking at Cuba, I have this ship which is connecting Havana, or no, I'm sorry, start with this bus. I have this bus which is connecting all of the cities on Cuba, Pinar del Rio, all the way down to Santiago de Cuba. I think this bus is actually causing more problems for me than it's solving. And I've talked about this before, passengers taking routes who I don't want them to take the routes they end up taking. And usually my approach to that is to just lean into whatever choice they're making, make sure that whatever route they are taking, they'll actually be able to get to their destinations. In this case, this is an exception. That bus line and also the ship that I had going all the way around the island, which is just too slow, is doing more harm than good. And by removing those two routes, I'm simplifying the routes around Cuba in a way that I think will make it easier for the passengers to actually get to their destinations. So having done that, I want to return to the problem of actually making sure that all of the passengers from all the cities on Cuba can actually get to all of their destinations. So I'm going to start with Havana. There are many ships currently operating out of Havana. I'm going to upgrade some of them. I'm also going to create a few new routes for ships. So that ship that I've added is taking care of getting from Miami to Key West. This is one of the first ships that I created when I started out of Miami. I realized the route that it's actually taking doesn't make a lot of sense. That it was going from Miami to Havana to Key West and then back to Miami. And it makes a lot more sense to stop at Key West in both directions between Miami and Havana. So I wanted to make that change. And even with that, there are many, many passengers who need to get between Havana and Key West. So I want to add a direct ship between those two. I have a couple of routes that are going through Key West. As I think about ships more, I think it's more useful for ships to just be direct routes between two ports, and going between several ports is less efficient for ships than it is for, say, trains. So I want to make sure I have that direct connection between Havana and Key West. I also want to have a direct connection between Havana and Cape Coral. And making lots of choices about which ships I should be using based on the number of passengers who are currently in Havana. And so, since I already worked out what I'm doing, not going through and showing everything. And I want a direct route from Key West to Cape Coral as well. At this point, I had direct routes from Key West to Havana and also from Key West to Miami. The third city that it has passengers for is Cape Coral. And so in order to have a ship which only connects to Cape Coral and Key West, I had to make Key West a hub as well. So that should help all of the passengers who need to leave Havana by ship. So I can move on now to Pinar del Rio, which has a connection to a new city, Belize City. So like I've done before with the plane going to Cancun, I'm going to create a plane departing from Havana and stopping at Pinar del Rio and then proceeding onwards to Belize City. And so that should hopefully take care of all the passengers in Pinar del Rio who want to get to Belize City. I also have this connection from Havana to Georgetown. It turns out Georgetown now has passengers to Montego Bay, and so I want to add a flight there as well. And again, it will have to start from Havana because that's the nearest hub. So just double checking. All cities should prosper. It's talking specifically about Havana and Santiago de Cuba. I've made a bunch of changes around Havana at this point, so let's take a look at Santiago de Cuba. So the big things we need for Santiago de Cuba were better connections to the mainland and then also to the Dominican Republic. I'm not sure how much I actually need to do right now with those. Although, looking at it again, I have a bunch of passengers who want to get to St. Clair, and they're taking the bus, and also Camagüey. I have a bunch of passengers who want to return there, and so I have this one bus right now between St. Clair and Santiago de Cuba, and so I want to just add a second bus to this route. And with luck, that will allow enough passengers to travel from Santiago de Cuba that I will be able to complete that task for all cities to prosper. Alright, so having done those, as far as I'm concerned, my tasks are pretty much done at the moment. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that last one. But I want to work on the other routes that I have, other things that I know that I need to be making changes to. And I want to start with Cincinnati, as I was showing, all of the cities around Cincinnati. I'm trying to use the hub in Cincinnati to sort of attack the company which is operating out of Chicago and Detroit. And so I need to add many more routes in this area and expand a bunch of routes in this area to make sure that I'm taking all these passengers and the other company doesn't have an opportunity to take these passengers. So Fort Wayne, again, was a city kind of in the middle, which I wasn't connected to before. I've been planning to connect to it for a while. It turns out, given the road routes that are available in the cities that I want to connect to it, actually connecting with a bus is going to be more useful a lot of the time. Or, I'm sorry, connecting with a train is more useful a lot of the time. So that's what I did. I also have a bunch of cities where the other company has direct connections between certain pairs of cities. And I want to also have direct connections between those cities because Cincinnati is my only hub. The buses on all these routes have to start in Cincinnati. So that connected Canton and Cleveland. I'm also going to connect Canton and Detroit. And that train route, which I added in, also is convenient because it passes through Canton and Mansfield on its way directly to Chicago. The next one I was looking at is Clarksburg. Turns out Clarksburg is interesting because it's being used as a connection point between Cincinnati and Culpeper. And as a result, it's overflowing with passengers. So I'm going to add a bus to Cincinnati, expand that route so it's easier for passengers to go that way. And then since all these passengers from Culpeper are really headed to one of these other cities, whether it's Columbus or Dayton or Cincinnati, I'm going to add a bus route that goes directly through. There are lots of passengers who are taking one bus from Culpeper to Clarksburg and then a second bus from Clarksburg to one of these other cities, and so I'm just going to let them take a single bus to get there. Next on my list was these two trains. I have these two trains which are moving in this triangle, connecting really Chicago, Detroit, and Cincinnati, and all the cities along those paths. And I just want to expand both of those train lines. They had ended up with a slightly different group of trains on each line, one going in one direction, one going the other. And so I'm going to add one train and upgrade another one. So now I have the same number of trains, I have the same size trains running in that route in both directions. So back to other cities which need direct connections, I want to add a direct connection between Mansfield and Detroit. So there we go. And I want a connection between Athens and Detroit. So again, it has to start in Cincinnati. I'm trying to avoid building more hubs. I don't really see another place where I want a new hub in all of these cities. It's a little unfortunate that I have to rely on this hub, which is sometimes a little bit far from some of these cities. So I also have several connections from Kokomo. First I'll connect to Valparaiso. And alright, as I've been playing, time has been passing. At this point, I have enough money in hand that I can pause the game and just build things out for a little while. So I'm going to keep going. I had the one connection from Kokomo to Valparaiso. I also want a connection to Chicago. I'm also paying attention to the day of the month because I have till the end of the month to complete the tasks, and I want to give myself enough time that I can go back and check what's happening in Cuba, see if there's anything else I can do to help complete that task. But for the moment, I want to stay focused on what I'm doing. So I'm going to create another connection to Fort Wayne. As I said, I looked at the roads that can get added by connecting to Fort Wayne, and they're just not useful. So this is going to be a train route. I'm a little bit nervous here. I'm adding enough train routes through Fort Wayne that I'm worried they won't really all be profitable. But I'm going to need each of them individually because they're each picking up sort of different groups of passengers. But it's really the only way I saw to do this. I realized to help me do this, and just because it seems like it'll be generally useful, I've decided I'm also going to add a hub in Florence. And now that I have that hub in Florence, I can add a train route from Detroit, again going through Fort Wayne, making other stops along the way. And ending in Florence. And without this hub, I wouldn't have been able to end in Florence, and this train route would have ended up being more awkward. So there we go. That train route should be a useful connection through Fort Wayne, but also some of the other cities that it's stopping at. Having that train route will be useful for those cities as well. Since I now have this hub in Florence, there are a few other connections from Florence that it's worth adding. I should have a direct route from Florence to Washington. And given the number of passengers who I know want to go on this route, I can make it a Pioneer 8 rather than just starting the smallest size train. And then in the other direction, we'll come from Florence through the cities on the way. And our final destination is Mexico City, since I have lots and lots of passengers who want to get to Mexico City from lots of directions. Okay, so I got a little distracted by Florence for a moment. I'm going to return to Cincinnati. As I've been adding in all these routes connecting pairs of cities, and then starting from Cincinnati, here's another one. I want a connection between Columbus and Detroit. And I realized I want a connection between Culpeper and Detroit, sort of more directly. So we'll come up through Cleveland and then up and around to Detroit. While I'm adding train routes, I'm going to add another one starting in Miami. And this train route, I'm going to go through Tallahassee and Albany and Columbus, and the reason why is some of these other cities, Tallahassee and so on, the company in Chicago has a direct connection to that city. And it's actually been somewhat disruptive. Passengers are traveling to those other cities so they can take those direct connections, and it's not always working out well for them. So I want to make sure that I'm giving them a better direct connection up to Chicago. And so sort of picking out a path through various other cities, see if I can find one that makes sense. And then since I'm connecting to these new cities, I need to add rails for these cities as well. Rail's not quite going in a straight line at this point, but that's sort of the best option. So just showing this, that right now, I now do have a direct connection from Tallahassee to Chicago. Previously I didn't. Previously there was just this plane with a direct connection between the two of them, and the plane being operated by the other company means I want to make sure that, you know, I'm in control of what's happening. And Albany and Columbus just have lots of passengers who needed to get to Chicago. I guess Columbus did have that direct flight as well. So again, the idea is I'm going to add a train so I can sort of compete with the flight from the other company. But so I have that one train route. I do actually want another train route which is going through the hubs, that's going through Macon and Atlanta, so I will add that as well. And sort of working through the options of which other cities I should be stopping in. Make sure that I'm maintaining all the connections that I need between all of these cities. The goal I keep having in mind for myself is that I want to have a direct connection between every pair of hubs. And so adding in those train routes and another one, we'll start in Myrtle Beach. Again, I've worked out these routes ahead of time. It's all about given the train tracks that this game will build for me, and when I'm relying on the game for choosing where the tracks can go, and given which combinations of cities that I really want to have connections between, what are the best train routes for me to build out. And so I was talking at the start of the video of, I make a list of all of the connections that I need and sort of write out how I'm intending to do them. And because I have this written list, it's easier for me to see when there are several things that are going on, and where in some cases my first thought about a change that I should be making isn't necessarily the best one. And I'll realize, I actually have several cities that I want to do something with. I can just create one of these train routes rather than individual bus routes. I'll make a train route which goes through several cities and take care of everything in one shot. At least I hope it'll take care of everything. And so I've come back down to Havana, and I want to add more routes if I need to because I want Havana and Santiago de Cuba to both be at 100% fulfillment. They're obviously not quite there. And trying to decide what I should do about it. All right, so I have 10 more passengers who want to go to Bunny. Do I need to add a plane? I have these 3 passengers who want to go to Nassau. And is there a problem there? And I have these 15 who want to go to St. Clair. So I've already expanded this bus route once. So at this point, I need to figure out, what are these buses doing? Okay, so they're both coming to Santiago de Cuba right now. Pretty sure. So they'll be about to pick up, potentially they could pick up 50 passengers from Santiago de Cuba between the two of them. So I think I'm good on that side. I think the plane is going to be fast enough to take care of the passengers it needs to take care of. So I don't need to do any more there. I can come back to just the other connections generally that I wanted to take a look at. I've done everything I wanted to do around Cincinnati, and so now I'm just going to hit as much of the rest of my network as I can. And a lot of places I've done various pieces of expansion last time around, and the expansion that I've done hasn't been good enough. I wanted to add 2 forkers to this route, but they're now sold out, as are the Sanfords, and so I guess I'm going to have to take 2 Gannets instead. A little bit concerned about this because I'm already at the point where I'm running out of options for buses, and I sort of planned through for many of these cities what I wanted to be adding based on what I thought I needed, and now I can't necessarily add the vehicles that I want to be adding. So rethinking things, is it enough if I was going to add a forker? Is it enough for me to add just 1 Gannet? Maybe. Okay. Oklahoma City, this is interesting, has passengers who want to get to Las Vegas. And so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this hub in Denver. There are, in fact, a bunch of passengers who want to get to Las Vegas. Let me see if I can find it. There we are. And so I want to have a plane going to Las Vegas. I don't think it makes sense for me to have a bus or a train at this point. And I was trying to decide what city that plane should leave from, and decided that really I want it to leave from Denver. Even though there are no passengers from Denver who want to go to Las Vegas right now, passengers can take this bus connecting to Salina out to Denver and then take the plane the rest of the distance there. So I have that one bus. What is this bus? Oh, okay, no, that bus is going to a different place. just checking how am I doing on passengers to Denver at this point. All right, apparently there are no passengers waiting to go to Denver from Salina. I'm a little surprised. Actually, a little worried. Okay, so they want to go to Colorado Springs, so there are 7 of them. But even then, I expected that number to be higher. Right, there's hardly anybody in Colorado Springs right now. Because I have all these routes going to Colorado Springs. I'm just... Having planned everything out in advance, I'm now thinking through what's happening here, because I'm not actually seeing what I expected to be seeing at this point. Like, is there an issue? Are these passengers just not getting to Salina so they can get to Colorado Springs? But I'm not seeing passengers backing up anywhere, so maybe everything's working. Yeah, that path isn't correct, right? It says that there's a path connecting Memphis and Colorado Springs, and the path that listed doesn't actually connect to either Memphis or Colorado Springs because it's the old Memphis to Salina to Colorado Springs path. I think it's gotten slightly confused. I hope that's not a problem. Okay, I don't see passengers who want to go to Colorado Springs right now from Memphis, so obviously they're getting to Salina at least. They're going somewhere. So maybe it's fine that there aren't as many passengers in Colorado Springs as I expected. Okay, here we are. There are a bunch of passengers who are trying to return from Colorado Springs who are currently waiting in Denver. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and so I added that flight from Denver to Las Vegas, and so now even more passengers will be trying to get to Denver, but that should be fine. I'm going to let that be for a moment. Come back over to this area around Atlanta, looking at these cities. That need just more connections, and I'm going to upgrade this route from North Charleston to Chicago. And then what else was I going to look at? So yeah, basically I'd done a bunch of changes around the Ardmore hub. There weren't actually that many to do. Now I'm looking at cities around the Atlanta hub again, even though I just last month made a bunch of changes in Atlanta. There are many more that I need to make. I had this train route going from Atlanta to Greensboro. It was one of the early trains that I created. I realized I actually wanted to keep going. I wanted to continue to Washington. So I'm going to change that route. So it'll now start in Washington and come back to Atlanta. Yeah, this is the same type of thing that I'm talking about. I don't want train routes that are ending in cities which aren't hubs, because then that city where they end ends up accumulating passengers, like all these passengers I have who want to go to Macon right now from Athens, and it is harder to see those passengers in cities which are not hubs. So I've ran into this problem with Athens and Macon, and again, trying to decide what kind of buses I wanted to be using. I wanted both of those to be forkers, and since that wasn't an option, I'm going to get a third Gannett instead of having only 2 forkers on that route, which was my original plan. All right. I have a bunch of passengers who end up stuck in these various cities, Asheville and Greenville and wherever, Athens too, who are really trying to get from Atlanta to Cookeville. And since there isn't a direct, a single bus that goes through all of those, passengers are getting stuck in various cities along the way. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add a bus route that connects to all of them, and hopefully passengers will stop getting stuck in those cities. Okay, so Culpeper was a hub that I took over. Another company had been operating it. And so one thing I want to be doing is adding another train from Culpeper, or upgrading the existing train, I guess. Yeah. Because there's so many passengers who want to get to Mexico City, really, that train needs to be bigger. Okay, so I've spent a whole bunch of money. I've been doing everything paused. I'm going to unpause the game so I can start bringing more money back in, so I can keep spending. Augusta, big problems. Again, it's a lot of passengers who want to go to Macon. Trying to make the best decisions I can about which buses to use, given what's available. We'll just add the second window and we'll see how that does. Alright, well, it hasn't filled up, so that's a sign that maybe just 2 of them will be enough. So the way I'm doing this, as I'm finding sort of, I have this list of routes that I know I need to change. And I'm running down the list, doing this. I don't always see why I thought I needed to make these particular changes. So I was thinking maybe there's a way to do this that'll be more clear in the future about why I'm doing these things. I know I need to expand this route. I need another bus on this route between Detroit and Atlanta. It's because one of the cities between Detroit and Atlanta, I think, has lots of passengers. Although, out of the new bus in Detroit, it immediately filled with passengers to lots of places. So I'll add a second bus as well. Okay, so here's one. Sumter has lots of passengers who want to get to Mexico City. Turns out there are a lot of these cities that have passengers who want to get to Mexico City, and the company in Mexico City has buses which is coming directly to all of these cities individually, which is a total pain because I want these passengers to be going to the nearest hub and then take the train from that hub to Mexico City. But if there's a bus route which is coming once every 2 months and can only carry 25 passengers to begin with, the passengers end up waiting for that bus route rather than going to the nearby city which has trains with more capacity. So I need a train route which is going to go through all of those cities individually, or as many of those cities that I can, and have a route that kind of makes sense, so that those passengers don't end up waiting for those buses which are very slow. And then Gadsden is, for whatever reason, is getting lots of passengers who want to go to Cookeville, so I'm just going to add a direct bus. Alright, so next up is Green Bay. The issue here with Green Bay is I have these planes which are traveling back and forth to Atlanta. They're losing tons of money, and so I'm just going to downgrade these two planes right now. See if that does better. Just checking the planes at this point. See, well, two of them are actually running empty right now, so maybe I should be actually deleting the planes entirely. I'm going to keep them, just give it a chance to work out, see how they're actually doing. Another route that I'm having issues with is this direct route between Atlanta and Tampa. This one larger bus, this Wyndham, clearly doesn't need to be this large. I'm going to downgrade it. And I'm hesitant to delete the bus entirely, even though it was running empty at the moment, because I don't want to sort of overreact to the fact that it's not carrying many passengers right now. But it's losing enough money that as long as I'm doing all these other changes, I want to make sure I catch some of these. Alright, and so here's one that I want to be upgrading. We have all these passengers out of Cincinnati and to these cities around it. Keep trying to move on from Cincinnati and work on other areas of the map and keep finding things to come back to in this area. This was the long train route which I introduced last episode to replace the shorter route just between Cincinnati and Washington. It is doing much better than the old route did, and I need to add another train to that route right now. Here, just increase the connection between Washington and New Bern. Yeah, I feel like I'm dealing with a bit of a debt on the connections to all these cities that are going to Culpeper and eventually to Washington and further, because I took over the hub in Culpeper from another company. You had not been building out these routes the way that I would have been, and so now I'm coming back to it and realizing, no, I need to be doing better on all of these routes. And like I was doing with Cincinnati, there are lots of pairs of cities that I want to be working on, so I need a better direct connection between Hampton and New Bern. But since I need to start from a hub, I'm starting from Culpeper. Or since there has to be a stop at a hub anyway, it doesn't have to be the start. And because of all the new routes that I've been putting in, some of the old routes are now losing money, and so I want to downgrade some of these vehicles. Trying to decide what I should be downgrading to. Okay, yeah, the Antero is probably too small. We'll look again. There's also a thing going on with the two different brands of bus companies. That there's the one bus company which has higher profits, but the other bus company is able to operate at a smaller number of passengers and still not operate at a loss. So deciding which company to be looking from is something I'm trying to think through. I'm trying to get right. I'm trying to make sure that I can run my routes in a way that are as profitable as they can be. coming back to check on Cuba, right? This all cities should prosper thing. How am I doing? Havana looked okay. I'm more concerned about Santiago de Cuba. At this point, I have 18 passengers for Bani and 0 for NASA, but I'm only at 64%. And so I've run into this problem before. If I'm at 0 passengers available, but I'm not at 100% fulfillment, I don't really know what I can do to get more passengers to take that route. The passengers don't exist. So maybe I just need to improve my bus connection between Santiago de Cuba and the other cities. I'm not sure. The buses look like they're doing okay. Because they'll take the bus back to St. Clair and then they can take a plane over to Nassau, and that should work. On the other hand, this route, given the number of passengers who currently need to get from Santiago de Cuba to Bani, it may make sense for me to add a plane to the route. Obviously, I keep going back and forth on this, trying to work out how to hit my target in Cuba. Is like, I'm actually thinking through this while I'm recording, unlike a lot of the other changes that I've been making, which are things I've planned out in advance. So I will actually get a second plane. Hope we can get that up to 100%. Still don't know what to do about the bus passengers, but since I don't know what to do about it, there's nothing I can really do about passengers who are going to Nassau, I mean. So with that out of the way, and again, I wanted to pause to give myself the time for that new plane to actually make a few trips. I can return to what I was doing, which again is going through these routes from Culpeper and upgrading some of them, downgrading others. This one needs to be upgraded. And because I've downgraded a couple of routes, I now have a few larger vehicles that are available in my inventory again. So I want to make sure I'm using all of those. So, alright, I'd used my last Sanford that I had gotten available, but I have a Wyndham available, so I want to make sure that I'm adding that to something. So we'll put it on this route to Virginia Beach. And I will also get a Gannett, because the one Wyndham by itself is probably not enough. And so just looking over, how is Virginia Beach doing at this point? Lots of passengers who want to go to lots of places. Not sure there's a particular route to work on. Tons of passengers who want to go from Myrtle Beach to Virginia Beach. So, just to mix things up a little bit, I'm going to add a ship. I figure both cities are ports. Might as well have a ship on this route. Turns out there are no passengers who actually want to go directly between those two cities, but obviously lots are going to one city or the other to transfer to the other city, and so it makes sense to have a direct route. If I'm looking at Dover, just there's been this connection to Dover for a while that the other company is running. I just want to get in on that action if I can. There are enough passengers who want to get to Dover from enough different places that taking some of those passengers myself is going to work out for me. Also, just looking at all of these cities, Rochester in particular is a city that I don't have a connection to yet. And there are lots of passengers who want to be connecting between all of these cities directly. I had the one connection from Toronto to New York, but I want another one from Toronto to Washington, really, and then also through to Culpeper, because that's this hub that I control. And I can pick up a couple more cities that I wasn't previously connected to. And again, these are cities that are being served by this other company. I want to establish my own routes going through all these cities so that I can try to take some of that service away from the other company. And more of the same. So I wanted to duplicate some vehicles here. Pretty sure. Okay, no. This is one of the routes where I have too much going at the moment. So I want to downgrade it so I can sort of recover these vehicles so I can use them for something else. Reduce one of the Sanfords down to a Hubbard, it'll have to be. And now I have another Sanford I can use somewhere else. Here's another Sanford, which I can free up. Again, the other company had created all of these direct routes between Culpeper and all these individual cities, and I've been making various routes that are, longer, connecting through many cities, and as a result, these direct connections aren't as needed anymore, so I can downgrade a lot of these vehicles. Just checking what vehicles I have available at the moment. So I can try to upgrade other places that need it. So many of these cities are just very close to being full of indirect passengers. And so I'm trying to make that work out. I was going to downgrade this one, but I'm realizing the bus is actually full right now. And so maybe this route is doing better than I thought it was. It's one of those things about trying to both directions, upgrade and downgrade. They have to sort of look at what the state of the map is right now and make decisions about what changes to make based on what I'm seeing. And then by the time I actually get around to making some of those changes, the situation has sometimes changed. And so I'm not always... I'm making my best guesses about what to do. In some cases, I make a change and then I come back to it. Right, sold out of vowels. When I come back to it later, I realize the change that I wanted to make isn't actually the best change anymore. There's so much happening in this game, and it's just hard to, no matter how well you're sort of planning things out in advance, things may not always work out the way you want them to. I want to downgrade this Pioneer 8. And I may not be able to. Yeah, because now both of those trains are sold out. So, running into problems at this point. I want more of the smallest trains, I want more of the largest buses, and they're just not available. I think I have a few buses at this point that I can use because I've downgraded some other things, but it's getting harder to make useful changes at this point because I just don't have the vehicles. So coming back to this side of the map, I realized I need a better connection from Austin to Houston. And so I'll add an Endicott on that route. And I need a better connection from Wichita Falls. So I'll upgrade this Hubbard, which I should be able to do now. There it is. And then looking at Dallas, do this connection between Dallas and Houston, which is doing well, but it needs more. And so we'll upgrade one bus to a Sanford and then just add another Sanford. And I think I'm out of Sanfords at this point. I have this direct connection between Dallas and Houston as well. And I would like to upgrade this. I don't think I can. Yeah, Forker sold out. Sanford is also sold out. I can just buy. Okay, I have 2 Gannets left that I can buy, so I'll buy a Gannet. I'm just running out of vehicles. I have all these upgrades that I want to be doing, and I just can't. On the other hand, this route between Shreveport and Dallas is currently losing money. So I'm going to try downgrading you. And so that gives me a bus back that I can use somewhere else. So just looking around, I know I had a bunch of connections here. Which ones do I need to be working on? Okay, so I had this flight to Salt Lake, or Austin wants to go to Salt Lake City. I added a flight from Denver to Las Vegas already. I'm also going to add a flight from Denver to Salt Lake City. Again, it turns out there are lots of cities that I have connections to already that have Salt Lake City as a potential destination. And so I'm going to get a P320, which should be large enough to handle the current capacity demands to Salt Lake City. And it just doesn't feel necessary at this point to be building a road across the mountain range to get to Salt Lake City, but I do want to have that connection going. So wondering how I'm doing. All right, so I have lots of passengers who are backed up in Colorado Springs, they're in Salina. They need to get to Colorado Springs. They're taking this bus to Denver. The current bus doesn't really have enough capacity for it, so I'll go ahead and add another bus to that line. It's funny that the bus is currently losing money, but that shouldn't last forever. And I can reverse the route. Since I'm paused, I can reverse the route on this new bus that I've created so that it'll actually start in Salina, so it can immediately pick up passengers when I unpause the game. And other things to look at. I have all these routes from Eau Claire, which I created last month. Some of them, they really need upgrades. I have that forker, which I freed up, so I can add the forker on this route. Milwaukee to Rockford is a big problem for me. There are lots of passengers who want to go directly to Rockford, but also lots of passengers, it turns out, who want to transfer through Rockford to other places. And so that bus route is the only way I can make that happen. And then let's take a look at Hidalgo del Peral. Right, so we have passengers want to get to Durango, they also want to get to Mazatlan. It's the route from Durango to Mazatlan is a problem. So I want to add a bus to this route. My only real option at this point is to add another Gannett. I think I wanted to add more, but that's really all I can do at this point. I also have passengers who want to get from Torreon to Hidalgo del Peral. And so I will add another bus. Guess it'll have to be an Endicott. Buses I'm adding keep getting smaller and smaller, which means they do less and less. There's so much more that I want to do, and I'm just running out of vehicles to do it with. I have this route, all these passengers who want to get from Houston to various other places, and I can add a bus. I'm going to have to, or a train. I'm going to have to hope that there are actually enough passengers to support the Pioneer 8. I'm not sure I wanted to go that big, but I don't have a choice. I can't go smaller than that right now. Right, here's another one I want to look at. Matamoros has a new destination, Monterrey. It turns out there's no valid path. You can see the road going up through San Antonio. It turns out it's just too long. Passengers won't take that route because it's too long, so I have to add a direct road between Matamoros and Monterrey. And this one can afford to be pretty small. I'll get Hubbard. And in this case, there's a direct road, a nice straight line path. So that should do well. And just considering other things I can do, it's just running out of vehicles and trying to make choices. Like I have passengers who want to get to Atlanta, and I have a bus directly to Atlanta. I also have this bus to Houston, which can potentially help. I'd like to upgrade this Antero. Is there anything I can upgrade it to? Am I still again it? No, okay. So I can't actually upgrade any of the buses on this route. I guess I can add another. Should I bother? Yeah, let's add another Endicott. And go ahead and add 2 Endicotts, because just one wasn't going to be enough. Just taking a moment to think about, like, what else can I usefully do? I've had this list of changes I wanted to make, but I'm running out of vehicles at this point, so I can't actually do a lot of them. I've had this plane going from Jackson to Montego Bay. It's funny, like, this plane's been operating at a loss the entire time it's been in existence. At this point, I need another one. I can't actually carry all the passengers who will want to go from Jackson to Montego Bay with the plane that I currently have, so even though it's losing money, I'm going to add another plane. And On the other hand, I had these planes connecting Jackson and Chicago, and it turns out these are not doing great. Although actually they're doing better than I thought they were. Again, things have changed since the last time I looked at them. So I was thinking about downgrading those planes, and maybe I don't actually need to. Alright, so what do I have next? There's so many more buses I want to be adding. There's so many trains that I want to be adding, and I can't really do any of them. Here's connection. I can do a train connection that I've realized that I need. There are now lots of passengers who are coming down to Miami from the East Coast in various places, and right now they're all have to go through either go through Atlanta, or they can take a bus up the coast. But given the number of passengers that want to do this, I should really have a train doing this as well. So I'll do the train. I'll stop almost everywhere on the way. I don't think I need to stop in Orlando, which is slightly out of the way. And I'll buy the smallest train that I can for this route, which is the Pioneer 8. I was thinking about adding a direct connection between Houston and Memphis, because right now there isn't one. Passengers don't need to go directly between the two cities, but some passengers connect between them. And I was thinking I should just add a direct connection. I've also been thinking, I don't know that this is a great idea, but it's something that I've been thinking about. I want to add more planes with direct connections between hubs so that it's easier for passengers to go directly between pairs of hubs. But looking at the planes that are currently available, partly it's I've spent down all of my money again. I decided to not actually do that one right now. I'm not sure. Yeah, part of what I was thinking is I sort of want an excuse to be using more planes because I haven't been using very many yet. I've been relying on trains to get around the country, and I'm realizing that if I start adding train routes or plane routes between hubs, especially hubs that are relatively far away from each other, then that should be a good use for those planes. And all right, I'm running low on money. So there are a few more things that I wanted to do. Right at the beginning, I created this hub in Denver and always wanted to come back to it. And so I'm going to do that now. Fortunately, these are all small buses that I want to be using for these. Denver had a connection to Pueblo, and so I've made it. Colorado Springs has a connection to Cheyenne. And so since there's already the bus between Colorado Springs and Denver, I just made a bus from Denver to Cheyenne, and that will take care of that. There are also lots of passengers from Cheyenne to Denver, so that'll pay off in both directions. And then the last connection from Denver is down to Roswell. And again, the Endicott's a good vehicle for this. You can see the road that I'm building out is going to go through Los Alamos. I've looked at Los Alamos. It doesn't actually have passengers that want to go in any useful directions for me right now, so I'm not actually going to bother to stop there. I'm just going to have the bus go straight through that road. Have the road go straight through that city without stopping. And so now those are some connections to Denver. That's all set up. to Miami. There are lots of passengers currently waiting in Miami to get to Nassau. I already have this one ship on this route connecting them. I'm going to add a second ship on this route. If I can't build out any more buses or trains, I can at least add some more ships. One that I've been looking at is that there are lots of passengers who want to go directly from Nassau to Tampa. I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to add a ship that goes directly from Nassau to Tampa. Because right now they have to go to Miami first. And the trade-off to this route is it's slow. On the other hand, there are clearly passengers who want to use this route. So I'll see how it does. And another place where I need more ships is Myrtle Beach to Hamilton. I already have a bunch of ships on this route. Again, this route is so long that I really need lots of small ships on this route so that they're able to pick up passengers all the time. And I created it, I forgot that I had unpaused the game, and so this ship started in Hamilton. I really wanted to be putting this ship in Myrtle Beach. So that's not great. But what I'll do is I'll pause, I'll immediately add another ship. On this new ship that I've added, I will immediately reverse the direction of the route. So the ship will actually start in Myrtle Beach. And I really wanted to have two ships starting in Myrtle Beach because of the number of passengers who are there right now. So even though I've added two ships, I'm going to go ahead and add the third and do the same thing with this one. I have to edit the route, so we'll start in Myrtle Beach. Having created the one that started in Hamilton, I didn't want to just go ahead and reverse it anyway because I didn't want to kick out the passengers who had just gotten on. And so that should help. And at this point, another place where I can add a ship is from North Charleston to Savannah. Even though there's the direct road connection, there are enough passengers who want to go directly between those two cities for various reasons that adding another connection seems like a good idea, seems useful, and I might as well make it a ship. The ship is fast enough between the two cities that it seems like it should be a good alternative to taking the bus or taking the train now that I've filled out that train route. Speaking of train routes, I've had this other route from the very beginning of the game from Atlanta out to Sumter, and again I want it to end in a hub, so I'm going to extend that route so it ends in the North Charleston hub. I've talked before about wanting to have it end in the Myrtle Beach hub, but the train route from Myrtle Beach to Sumter just doesn't make any sense. So since there is a good train route from North Charleston to Sumter, I'm going to add that one instead. Again, just looking around, thinking about my list of changes that I wanted to be making and trying to think if there are any changes that are worth doing at this point given the vehicles I have available. Just double check how I'm doing on all of my hubs. You can see Cincinnati is overflowing. The number of passengers who are currently in Cincinnati who are waiting for a connection is so large that it's preventing other passengers from traveling to Cincinnati, and I need them to be able to do that. And so the question is, can I do something about it right now? Right, I have this train between Salina and Culpeper, and it looks like a lot of the passengers who want to go, who are currently waiting in Cincinnati, are waiting for that train. So yeah, just think about what I can do about it, right? I have this train which is just passing through, and okay, we've gotten to the beginning of A. So we have new tasks. I have lots of new vehicles to buy. I think I need to stop right here. I think I need to think about what's going on. Figure out, again, what more new routes do I need at this point? I have all of these new tasks to do. I want to make sure that I can do all of them. I see I have more connections to Atlanta. That one just keeps coming back. So I'm going to stop here. This is where I say like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.